Everybody for having me back. Since we were last together, I got a new job, so that is great. That's the first thing I remind a lot of people when they ask me how it's going is number one, these are jobs that we're doing. It's a full-time position. It's treated a little differently than some of our state rep folks where we're going to be here every day, all day throughout the year. My first few months have been great. I walked into a really great staff already in place. We did go through a hiring process. So Shannon, who did run in the primary, she moved on to another job on her own. We would have loved to have kept her, but she was offered a great position elsewhere. So we did go through a hiring process, which was one of my surprises. I can talk about later that process. Been spending a lot of my time bugging CJ, who's our county attorney. So much of what our office does is making sure that what is presented meets statute. So learning those statutes backwards and forwards has been a big part of the first couple months. And then a little later on, I can talk about some of the things that we've accomplished and what we got coming up in the future. But I'll pass it off to Jenna to open up.
Great. Yeah, I think I also want to say thank you to everybody on this call. Muleskinners was one of the first events that I did after coming in for this special election. And I was pretty nerve-wracked going into it, but you all were so welcoming and so kind. And then I can't tell you how many times I heard after this event from other people who had talked to members of Muleskinners about the event, or you all individually provided me so much support in the campaign, and I genuinely really appreciate it so much, and it did make a huge difference. I was not just slightly, pretty incredibly unknown by a lot of folks in Boone County coming into this. And so you all having so many connections within the community and being so highly regarded by folks, when they would hear about me from you all, it really made a huge difference. And I just appreciate it so much. And I appreciate that you guys continue to do this work of sort of getting to know about the issues and the folks in the area doing this work and then spreading the message throughout the community. So but then okay, so thank you very much. And then also what's been going on since January 1. I think the two things that I wanted to talk about that sort of when we circle back that I'll hit more in depth is how much our professional staff are the glue that holds Boone County together. I could not have successfully transitioned this office without the incredible work that the professional staff did above and beyond anything I could have expected. And so, right, professional staff. And then the other thing is time is flying. I find it so hard to believe that we are already 6 months almost into this. And I think, most folks know I came in on a special election. So I got to run again in 24. And so it's, trying to get everything together within the office, set goals that are accomplishable in the time frame that I know that I have, and then also start to unbelievably think about doing this whole thing again for the 2024 race. So those are the things I plan to talk about, and then I'll pass it on to Kyle to sort of give him a chance to get started.
I don't have much to add after Jenna there. But do appreciate the opportunity and the support. Time is definitely flying. Definitely staying very busy with everything. And I think the county as a whole, there's a lot of new faces, and we're going through a lot of change, but in a good way. I think we've got a really good team. I worked at the state for 10 years and also at the city, and this has definitely been probably the best team that I've ever worked with. Everyone seems value aligned and really wanting to work together. So really appreciate that. And yeah, really just appreciate the opportunity to be here. So I don't know what else to say.
Good. Just an opening statement, I guess. So the title of it was like surprises and something or other, the talk. So do we want to go back through and have you all weigh in, like with at least one thing, but it could be multiple things that surprised you? It could be funny things, it could be unfortunate things. It's an interesting question to ask in an interview. I often will say, what did you not know that you needed to know, or what's the funniest thing that's happened or the strangest thing that's happened to you? So Bob, we'll let you go first.
Yeah, of course. I think one of the big surprises for me was once I really started digging into the office and the services that we provide is how we provide online access for the public. So Boone County is one of the few, there's probably 3 or 4 of us in the state where we don't charge to access those public records. So if you go to Cole County, you go to pretty much any county around us, there's going to be some sort of fee if you want to see the actual document. You'll always be able to get in and see that there was something recorded under your name, and it might be a deed, it might be a mortgage, but you don't actually get to see what that document is unless you pay them. So some of them it's $10 a day and you can search all you want and see all the documents. Some of them it's per search you have to pay. So you can rack up if you're doing poorly worded searches. And then some of them even charge by the minute. So that was one thing that when Boone County started providing this online access, it was really important that because we're a bigger county, that we're providing that to folks for free. So some of the numbers that I have on that, just last year, so 2022, there were 150,000 searches conducted. We have about 2,500 registered users. Now, a good portion of that is our big title companies. They're using that regularly for their business interests. They also buy our documents from us. So we're still seeing some revenue from them. But a large number of that 2,500 users are citizens who are getting on and searching 3 or 4 or 5 documents at a time. So that's just been something that I don't think I was necessarily tracking on how different that Boone County does it and how it's really helpful for folks. If we didn't do that and someone called in and say, hey, I own this property, I'd really like to get a copy of it. Their 2 options are essentially buying it directly from us, and we're going to charge them $1 per page plus this credit card fee and mail it out to them, or getting online. For Boone Countyans, it is free. They can get on, they register, you're able to see that document pretty much immediately. But any other county, you're going to have to pay something just to be able to see your information. So I think that was kind of one of the really first surprising things. The other one, and I prepared something just to give you an idea, was the use of e-recording and just how it exploded during the pandemic. You can see those numbers. This is our percentage of documents and how many were filed through e-record, and they went way, way, way up in 2020. Would like to see that continue to grow. It is more efficient. It saves companies, mainly law firms, title companies, banks from having to come into our office. They can do it online. It's more secure and convenient. Over the years, so just our recording volume, you will notice we're really, really far down 2022, and then 2023, we're going to be low as well. A lot of that has to do with the real estate market. With interest rates being so high on mortgages, a lot of people aren't refinancing. So that reduces just the volume of documentation that we're getting. You'll see that big jump in 2020 when we had the e-recording really take off. And it's kind of held steady just under 50%. And then just to give you guys an idea of since I've been in office, these are the numbers for just January through April for each of those years. So you'll see a growth in total documents recorded and then a steep drop off as we get into 2023. You'll notice we're behind even 2019. I didn't go back further than 2018, but I feel like we are at some of our lowest recording volumes. What that affects is that affects the funds that are coming into the office. Those one thing that surprised me was kind of how those funds get broken up. The different areas that do see some of those funds, whether it's our children's trust fund, that every portion of documents being recorded goes to, a state fund. There's a technology fund that helps recorders upgrade their technology. So that's really where we'll see some of those changes. And then the other one, other just surprising kind of funny thing, was I spent a week, 2 weeks ago or so, a week at training. And this was with the Missouri Association of Recorders. We got all the recorders from all the counties together and did required 20 hours of training we have to do each year. And just talking to some of the smaller counties, really seeing the difference in our volume. So even right now, when we're at our lowest, we're averaging 12 to 1,300 documents a month. I talked to one recorder from a very, very small county. The whole week, she's the only employee. The whole week that we were at conference, her office was closed. They were just stamping the documents, and she said she would record them all when she gets back. I said, man, what will that look like? That's going to take you hours. And she said, yeah, it might be like 6 or 7 documents. I was like, oh, little bit different. And why we have 6 employees and myself here to be able to handle that volume. She also said they do about 2 marriage licenses a year. It is almost always in May because they're getting married sometime in late May or early June. But that's their average. I pulled those numbers earlier today. We're about 1,000 a year. We've seen a decrease with COVID, but about 1,000 marriage licenses. Those were kind of my big surprises. So I'll pass it on to Jenna.
Yeah, let me do a couple quick follow-ups. Of those 2,500 individual users, do you have a sense that a lot of people are doing genealogical research since it's free and it's available?
Likely not.
No?
For the most part, it's people usually looking up their properties.
Or their neighbors.
Or their neighbors. Yep, that's also part of it. I think one of the reasons it's probably not that genealogical is because our online records only go back to 1964.
Yeah.
That is something the office, the staff works on every day. They are what we call backfiling. So taking older documents and indexing them, entering the data for who was part of those property changes, who's on the document, what property was transferred. It's a really slow process.
Yeah.
We're in typed up documents, so they're looking at typewritten documents. As we go further and further back and it becomes the handwriting, it's going to get even harder for them. It's a labor intensive process. It's one that I came in and said, great, how long is this going to take us to catch up? And it's just going to be, there's no good way to estimate how long it will take us, because we'll start getting into areas where we just don't have any idea of how long it'll take to index something.
Yeah. And it depends on the volume of your daily work too, right? I mean,
Correct.
If that starts to go back up, you're going to have less extra time for the,
and that's what
infill.
We will expect some more this summer. We've been told the market kind of fluctuates during the summer. There'll be more sales.
And people move, I guess, because their kids are out of school. I think the summertime's a big moving time. Yeah.
And I don't personally see interest rates moving a whole lot, but if they were to go back down, you could see some refinancing again. That's where we get a lot of the volume.
Oh, that makes sense. And then in the chat, Kathy had asked to follow up. She asked if you would please expand on e-recording. She doesn't really understand what that is or how it works, or maybe like who would use it and what for.
Absolutely. So e-recording is only for our commercial partners. Individuals are not permitted to use it. That's a security feature. We have to have it tied to a company. So generally these are attorneys, title companies, and banks. And it allows them to record without actually coming into the office or mailing. So for a long time, most of those recordings were done by mail. A lot of the times that's your loan releases. So when a loan is paid off, they're not in as big of a rush to get those recorded as you might be. But we'll see those in the mail. So really, if there are increases in our percentage, it's likely going to be businesses that we've converted from mailing in their documentation to sending it in electronically. It still follows all the same rules we have to follow. So they send us the documents. They have to scan the original, has to be a wet signature there. And then we do our same process to evaluate, make sure it meets all the statutes, and then go ahead and record it. But at the end of the day, they're much faster. We can get a batch of 10 releases and get them processed much quicker than we can do at our front counter with 4 people all
Yeah.
working that document.
That makes sense. And then Kathy also asks, do you have a sense of how much it costs your office to provide the free services that other counties charge for?
So right now, our annual service contract with our provider, that's stayed the same for the last bunch of years. So that's about $20,000 per year that we have. And that's a service contract we would be paying anyway to that company, because not only do they manage our online access, but they are our software provider for our in the office back end records management system. So it is about $20,000. One thing that is coming, so right now, we do not have the option for folks to buy documents online directly from us. We'll have an update to that software. So that was going to be something I talked about in progress, but
Okay. We can hold
we
it
haven't,
or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, we have an update coming where we should see some more revenue from people being able to buy documents directly, as well as offering our business customers the ability to bulk purchase documents and get a reduced rate for that. So there should be some increased revenue there. But I feel that it's really important for citizens to have that access. I get very upset. My wife's family has a farm in Callaway County, and I wanted to look up their information, and I wasn't about to pay $10 just to be able to look up public information.
Okay.
So I think it's something I feel strongly about, that we want to provide that as a service.
And if somebody walked into Callaway County and asked at the desk for that information, would it be free?
Yep, so they can go search in the office there. If they wanted to take a copy with them,
It would be a charge for the
it would
printing.
be up to $1 a page, correct? But
That's-
just to go and see the physical document, they'd be able to do that in the office. And we're required to provide that
Yeah.
To all citizens, to have
Wait,
the records open and available in the office during normal business hours.
Yeah.
This is an additional service.
Doesn't that seem counterintuitive? I mean, isn't it so much easier for your office if they don't come walk in and interrupt everything that's happening and say, drop what you're doing right now and go find this book and bring it to me, versus just letting them look it up themselves online from their house? Why would you charge for the thing that's the least work? Especially if you already have to pay for it. It's not costing your office anything extra, as you just pointed out, which is really fascinating, to provide that service. So really, that's just like a little something for me, for those other counties to offset, I guess, the 20,000 or whatever they're spending that they have to spend anyway.
Yeah, and I think the difference is for those counties, their volume is so much lower that their annual revenue is lower. So I said a portion of every reported document goes into a technology fund. That's what we use to pay for this service. But if you're recording
6 a week or whatever,
right, a tenth of what I'm recording, the volume doesn't make up for being able to provide that without subsidizing it some way further on the backs of citizens.
Unfortunately, like the 3 cents a page on those 6 things a week doesn't add up very quick.
Right.
Last question, and I promise I'll give you a break and we'll go on to Jenna. Dave Taylor asks, and I know you know the answer, do you have copies of land ownership abstracts, and how far back do they go? That's in the chat if you want to look at what I just said.
Yeah, I don't believe we have any specific abstracts. I can check. And David, if there's something specific, you can let me know. Normally those have stayed with the title companies. I believe they developed those abstracts. Really our role in that is providing the information used to come up with those abstracts.
Cool. We'll let you off the hook for the moment and we'll go to Jenna.
So surprise number one that I encountered is I was surprised to discover that when you follow Bob in a Muleskinners event, he's going to come with visual aids, but I'll do hand gestures. That's all I'm bringing to the table. So I mentioned before, you know, my realization of how much professional staff at the county sort of hold things together. Right. I think some of you know the transition in my office wasn't great. So I was surprised and disappointed about how that transition went. Right. I've been with the county for 9 years. I've seen lots of other transitions. You know, it's less common that we have sort of a party change, but it's happened. And in each of those transitions, you know, there's an exchange of information. There's, you know, people sort of, you know, put aside their disappointments or whatever, but work together to make sure that the office transitions well. And that just didn't happen this time around. I think, right. There's probably a million reasons why things were complicated, but I know that, you know, I thought the campaign went really smoothly. There weren't, you know, it wasn't heated, it wasn't hot, but yeah, but the transition went pretty poorly. So that the office is really small as well, right? There's the elected official, and then there are 2 full-time staff and 1 3/4 staff member. So it's a small office. The structure is there's the treasurer, and then there's a chief deputy treasurer, a deputy treasurer, and then there's a 3/4 staff member. 15 days before the transition, the chief deputy retired. That was long. That was coming for a long time. She had always planned to retire, but 2 weeks before the transition, she retired. She was the longest tenured employee in the office. She had a tremendous amount of knowledge about a whole lot of things. And then the deputy treasurer, so the other full-time position, was scheduled to retire in mid-February of this year. So in the small office with a bad transition, we had a lot of institutional knowledge leaving the county really quickly after the transition. But I will be forever grateful and indebted to the chief deputy in the office and the deputy in the office, because they did a tremendous amount to help the office transition smoothly. So I mentioned the chief deputy retired 2 weeks before I took office. In the month before she retired, she met with me almost every day and let me sit next to her while she was doing her job and take notes and ask questions. And then after she retired, she offered to come back, right? And we set up a contract with her where, right, I don't want to take advantage of her generosity and not pay her for her time. So we set up a contract with her and she came back. And anytime something novel occurred or anytime anybody had any questions, she was right there to fill in the gap and to help. And right, there's a fair amount that even she hadn't been exposed to before because it wasn't part of her responsibilities, but she would come in and sit next to me and we would try to figure it out together to make the office be successful. And, you know, the folks that were in this office when I came in, you know, they supported the other candidate, right? Because he was who they worked with every day and they were close. And I absolutely, right, I would expect that to be the case. You want to work with people who, you know, who are on your team. But despite that fact, right, they still leaned completely into helping me, helping the office. So the chief deputy, right, she did incredible things. She helped me find her replacement, right? She gave me a referral that ultimately turned into the person that I hired to be my right hand. She, the new chief deputy is absolutely wonderful, and she can get in touch with the prior chief deputy in a moment's notice, just texting between the two of them. The other full-time position in the office that also retired, right? She did yeoman's work, like memorializing all the things that she did in the office so that her replacement would have an easier time transitioning. And she still, right, both of them still check in on us, right, send text messages, call, say how are things going, they stop by, right? We are still all connected to each other because they're just absolutely wonderful public servants who care about the work, care about the community, care about the office being successful. And that has been, you know, over the course of my career in public service, that is the norm, right? These are people who are doing a lot of work, you know, not at the highest pay that they could possibly get. And they're doing it because they are, you know, the good people who care about the work that they're doing. And, you know, I am blessed and happy to get to work with these folks. And so one of the things I was surprised by, right, was an unusual transition, but then, right, I wouldn't at this point have it any other way, because I got to get the other side of that experience, which is just seeing these folks rally to really help the office and make the transition smoother. And, you know, there's no better way to sort of learn something when there is a lot of pressure. And I came in, we were probably 2 months behind on an awful lot of things. I was here every single day for the first 45 days, like weekends, nights, all the time, trying to dig out of this hole. But man, it helped things get in here really quickly. So I, you know, I'm in a space where I appreciate that today. And then, right, as part of this sort of acknowledgement that I could not do the work without the folks that are really helping and supporting me, I recognize, right, that I have a responsibility to them to, you know, support them, help them grow, figure out what it is that is going to keep them happy in the jobs so that I can keep them on my team as long as possible. So we've been doing a lot of team building. Bob knows a fair amount of this involves Peggy Jean's Pies, because they do this thing where every so often they have these like mystery pie tasting things where you can go pick up a bunch of different little mini pies, and then you can sit around with your team guessing what the flavor of these pies are. Bob has a family connection to Peggy Jean's Pies that he has not yet fully tapped into in order to give me a proper heads up of when these pie tasting things are coming, but I keep my eye open. But we've done some pie tastings. We're getting ready to do a puzzle race on Monday to see how quickly we can put a puzzle together, because we're working as a team. And I don't know, I think there just has to be a fair amount of fun in addition to all of the spreadsheets that we're looking at all the time, because, right, you need balance and you need to communicate, and, you know, and I like to feed people, so we do potlucks. And I brought in chocolate chip banana bread yesterday because chocolate chip banana bread is delicious and can solve a lot of problems. But yeah, so those are the surprises. And yeah, I'm happy to keep talking about lots more stuff, but I'm going to pass it on to Kyle so that he gets a chance to talk to you.
Yeah. The follow-up I'll say to that is, I think a testament to how wonderful it must be to be managed by you is how bereft the people in your former office were that you were leaving. Like the day that I came the day that you got sworn in, they followed you to your new office. You know, they were hugging you, they were crying because they were so upset that you were leaving, because you had treated them so well and built such a powerful team that was really a family. And it was just really kind of beautiful to watch that. And they knew, they're like, to these new people, they're like, you don't understand how good you're about to have it. And they were like trying to really pave the way for you, which I thought was really sweet and really a testament to the work you did in your prior, in the HR office where you were before.
That's very nice of you to say.
Yeah.
They still get invited to Banana Bread Day when we have.
Yeah, because they're just right down the street. Okay, Kyle, you're up again.
I've kind of forgotten the initial question, to be honest.
It was just kind of like, you know, surprises, things you didn't realize were going to happen or wish you knew or figured out the hard way, or if were funny or anything like that.
Yeah, I would say transition here has been a little different. June was in office for 32 years, so there was a lot of stuff that is very institutionalized. It's definitely, this is the third office that I've had the pleasure of kind of taking over, and this is definitely the best ran and kind of put together one. But there have been other areas that have been challenging because there's things that she didn't necessarily document because she wasn't thinking about that. She just knew how to do it. So it's been a little bit of a challenge. However, she is still here, comes in on a once a week basis. So the county has a contract. She's actually here today. So that's been extremely helpful. Our staff, we have a staff of 6. We had 2 vacancies when I came in. So Jason, who I ran against, left, and so did another accountant. So we just finally got fully staffed as of this Monday. So it's been a little bit of a rocky road getting there, but everyone has been great, great team, and really looking forward to having the team together, and also have a lot of team building and activities planned once we get through the audit, which we are in the process of doing right now. So it's been a lot of trial by fire, but going well. We are also in the process of a long ERP process that Jenna is also fairly involved with, and that's kind of been stalled a little bit as we get used to our new roles and staff. But I think there'll be a lot of good changes that will come from that, and then the next year. So.
Is that the new like software system that you all are trying to choose and implement? Is that what that thing is that you just said?
Yeah. So it's basically our finance, inventory management, HR, payroll, all of that, all wrapped up into one. Stands for Enterprise Resource Planning System. So, but yeah, it's I feel like just in probably the last 2 months has been able to kind of not have to come in and learn something every day. We're starting to at least get a little bit of routine and be like, oh, I've seen this before, and recognize it. So that's been refreshing in some ways, but once we get to the next phase, which is budget, then it'll be back to learning a bunch of new stuff again. So we'll be starting that after we get done with the audit and our financial statements, year-end close here. So everyone always finance stuff's always super exciting and really great to talk about in a public setting. But yeah, I think, like I said, I think the best thing that just really I enjoy is the culture and among the other electeds just seems to be really in a turning point compared to some of the horror stories you hear in other counties through also the associations and Missouri Association of Counties, and also just June has got plenty of horror stories from the past over 32 years where things were not always as collegial as they are right now. So I'm just really, really glad and looking forward to working with this group.
Cool. I think I'll ask one more question that we can go through the group. And then after that, be thinking, everybody on the call, we'll just open it up to random questions, and it could be a question for an individual. We don't have to play the fairness game. I don't think this is not a bunch of people campaigning for an office. So I don't think all three of them have to answer the same question necessarily. I mean, I trust you to be polite and not get out of hand or whatever. So the only other question I could think of, considering where you are right now is, and if the answer is, I can't think of anything, that's fine. Were there any like ideas or goals you had for like, when I get in office, I'm going to do such and such, or maybe even you had a campaign promise? I'm honestly, I don't have a ulterior motive. I just came up with this question. Is there something that you kind of thought you were going to do, or had a goal that you set, and now that you're there and have your feet on the ground and see how things really work, you've had to maybe adjust or change, or you have a new goal that you didn't even know you needed when you were campaigning? Hopefully that question's clear enough. Bob, you want to go first?
Absolutely. So that is both a clear question and fits exactly with my experience. So it was a campaign promise. It thought it would be easier than it was. So when I was campaigning, one of the things I talked about was using technology, making it more efficient to interact with our office. You might have seen yesterday, the day before, we put out a press release that we've now had an online marriage license application. And this was something when I was running, I was told the law was changed and Boone County hasn't implemented this process. I said, great, that's got to be a really easy thing to do. Shouldn't be an issue. I'll knock it out week one. We'll be fine. We'll get that online. Come to find out, so what the real story was, we did change the law. It was 2021. Part of that law was a little vague about how we do our online marriage license process. So I think a lot of counties kind of waited. It was also during COVID. So some different software providers came up with different solutions. And what our software provider did is they essentially gave a online form that folks can fill out that allows them to get their information into our system, but still have to come in physically to have their IDs checked as a security measure and physically sign their marriage license application. That is what we implemented. I, again, thought it was going to be something where I could just turn it on week one, we would be good. Found out that there's a lot of other considerations as you make these policy changes. Yes, it's really easy just to put it out into the wild and have people start applying, but we have our internal processes that we need to make sure are up to date. We needed to train all the staff to make sure they knew, here's how we address it if someone comes in with an online application, and then troubleshooting those problems as well. So one thing I did get a little bit lucky in how this process worked out. So we went live on our website about 2 weeks ago, but didn't put out the press release right away. That was kind of an accident with our IT folks, but it really worked out, helping us out to work out some of the differences in the system. Little things like it asks you for your last name, first name, and then it asks you for your last name at birth. Now, we really only care about that if you've changed your name. If it's different, the system didn't make that distinction. So we have people putting in Nolte, Bob, and then Nolte again in that last name. It adds more work for us because we then have to take it out on the back end. So being able to identify some of those pain points for the staff and work with our vendor to get those updated. It's still not perfect. It's still something that is going to grow over time. And then eventually, so as part of that state law, there was an allowance for a completely remote application process. So folks could get on their phone, do the whole process completely online, have their IDs checked, do some sort of two-factor verification, similar to when you pull your credit report and they ask you, where did you live in 2000? Have you ever driven this kind of car? Those type of identity verification questions. So we're working with our software provider right now to see what kind of time frame there would be to implement completely remote. But there's some concerns with that too, just personally. We have to be very careful with human trafficking. Forced marriage has been something that the staff has been trained on in the past, how to recognize signs of that. But it's a lot harder if they're not actually coming into your office, if they're just filling it out online, what that looks like. So that's something that down the road we're going to look into. I think I definitely learned lessons through this transition of how that next transition can be made easier. But that was definitely one that didn't go exactly the way I thought it was going to go. And we got there. It was just a couple months later than I had initially planned.
You anticipated my follow-up at the end of your answer, because I was thinking to myself, what would the benefit be of like having a marriage license that wasn't two people who actually wanted to get married? But the trafficking thing, I hadn't thought of it. I was just trying to think of other ways, like what would a bad person, like how would they misuse that system to have two non-existent people have a license issued, or a non-existent person and a real person? I could see maybe if you were in the military or something and had good spousal benefits, if there was some sort of,
Yeah.
monkey business going on there.
Yeah, and it's one of those you don't know until you
Yeah.
actually do it. We've had a couple of the really big counties in St. Louis, so St. Louis City, St. Louis County, and St. Charles. They have a different software provider who implemented that program without, I guess, guidance on. They kind of just said, okay, we think this meets the law. Whether or not it actually does remains to be seen. But I've met with them just to see what type of issues they're seeing, and for the most part they've had positive responses. It's only been probably 2 months, 3 months now that they've been doing that fully remote, but they've had generally positive responses. It also makes it a little easier when someone is getting married, someone from Boone County is marrying someone that lives elsewhere, and that person is only coming in to Boone County just for the wedding.
Yeah.
To come and get a marriage license in person if you're not actually going to be here until the day before your wedding.
Ooh, I didn't even think about that, because
Yeah.
people do sometimes go back to their hometown and get married if
Mhm.
they're actually going to be residing somewhere else. Oh,
Right,
yeah,
right.
that is tricky. Okay, Jenna, what about you? Did you have goals or ideas of what you thought you were going to do that had to be adjusted once you got in the seat there?
Yeah, I think a big part of my focus coming into this was, right, we're doing that new electronic finance system, right? And there's a lot of checks and balances in that system that need to be created for like the long-term health of the county systems. So I still think that's true. I still think that it's really important that somebody be really thoughtful in the design of this new system. But I think, right, that is a big project that involves, all of our offices, and is going to take a significant amount of time to get all the way wrapped up. I think in the shorter term, I'm committed to working on redesign of how we currently acquire securities, right? So a big part of what this position does is it buys investment products with the cash that the county has above what its immediate needs are going to be, right? We invest it into stable investment products. I think I am putting a high priority on updating our investment policy. Nicole Galloway wrote the policy that we have in place right now. Obviously, I think Nicole is wonderful, very smart, designed a really good investment policy, but at this point it's 10 years old, and we need to make sure that it's updated. But we also need to formalize a procedure for how we interact with all of these brokers who are wanting to sell the county investment products. We need to increase the transparency in how that process happens. And we need to make the process more automatically competitive instead of just having one-on-one individual relationships with brokers that nobody else in the public is sort of aware of, or a light is not shined on outside of this office.
Alan, Mary Jo, you're having way too much fun. I don't know what you're laughing about, but I wish I was sitting at your house. Kyle, you'll be the last on this question, and then I see Herb or Sue already have their hand up, so we'll go to them first after this. But yeah, did you have any goals or ideas for what you thought you were going to do, and then you sat down and you're like, oh, maybe not?
I think a goal that I had is definitely trying to increase Boone County's presence in the capital and in Jeff City. You know, we're very close, and I know that was definitely a goal that Commissioner Kendrick also had with his experience, and I think we've been pretty successful in even. It's not been a priority immediately coming in because we came in and session started, and we have to, get used to the office and learn the lay of the land here. But the last few weeks definitely was pretty active working with MAC and then the Missouri Association of County Auditors, and trying to. It's mostly defense on the local level at this point. So played a lot of defense on bills and had in my opinion, a fairly successful session, and hope to, definitely do more next year. Just using the experience that I have from when I worked at the state with the General Assembly, and along with, again, Commissioner Kendrick and his experience. So that's
Great.
been good.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think that is a different focus for the office than we've seen from June. She kind of had a way she did things and it was different. Tillamus, whoever it is, go for it.
That's a good introduction. Whoever it is doesn't really have a question. I want to get a compliment in before we run out of time, and I hope you'll spread it around. As a student of government, I am fully aware that the caliber and other good qualities of county government vary enormously across the United States, and I have lived it, I've seen it, and I've read about it. Came here, and I was pleasantly surprised to find the average caliber, the average worthwhile getting to know people in county government in Boone County well above what I expected and what I think is the norm. I hope you will thank all and sundry who worked for you and with you for making it so. And I hope that the public in Boone County will continue to be attentive and also express their appreciation of the good works that you do.
Nice. I'm kind of skimming. I don't see any hands up on the screen, although feel free to do it. Oh, David, go ahead.
I want to go back to the way Jenna started out. I might not have been paying. I think county government for our county is really important. We have to emphasize it now, mostly because state government is in such a bad situation. We have a strong county. I was surprised to hear that Jenna felt like that she was, rudderless in a campaign for election, because I considered her to be, have a pretty strong campaign and presence. I think she had some great people around her, including her mom. And but Kyle, for example, came in very late, and it was, all kinds of complexions, and we didn't know what to expect when he came before Muleskinners, and he gave us a very interesting presentation on his ideas about what he wanted to do. Well, what can Muleskinners and maybe the elected officials do the different people that are active in electoral politics, and this group is. A lot of old hands in campaigns and office holders and that sort of things. Bob knows us from way back because he's been a worker with that. But what can we do in general to strengthen that so that Jenna and Kyle, newcomers, have a stronger basis when they come in? I know that one young campaigner or one young candidate said that Andrew Twaddle took him aside and gave him a long talking to, and it was the best thing that had happened to him. Andrew's not with us anymore, but I think that kind of friendliness, advice, encouragement, which we can do here, on our weekly meetings, but other times as well. What suggestions do any of you have to help us as a group strengthen our electoral campaign experiences for our good candidates?
Floor's open. Go for it. If any of the three of you have a comment.
So I think, right, I can tell you what I appreciated the most, and those are the things that, right, I talked about early on. This group really is comprised of a lot of tastemakers, right, within the community. People care a lot about what your assessment is of people, and so any amount of time that you're taking to get to know people, I think is who are running for office, right, is time well spent, because, right, I'm also going to be looking to you all in the future as we get other people campaigning for office to, everybody is really busy with a whole lot of things, and to have the resource of this group available to help sort of shine a light on people who are doing good work, or, right, conversely, shining a light on people who maybe aren't in it for the right reason, or maybe are, a shallow pool or whatever. I appreciate the time that you all spend, right, being up on the issues and up on who the candidates are to help all of us make those assessments all the time. So.
Kind of to echo Jenna, I think continuing to come to events for candidates, I always think for a candidate, having people at those events, really boosts them, makes them a little more fun. But then what you guys do so well already is sharing that information. The amount of times there were people that mentioned, oh, someone from Muleskinners, someone else had already brought up that you spoke with them, had already brought up a point about it, sharing with your friends that might not be as involved, who you plan on voting for and why. I think those are really big. We'll always ask for money, that's going to be there. But I really think it's that word of mouth, getting that excitement out for candidates, especially in these county level offices where they are maybe not as exciting as some of the other offices. But as we talked about, it's really important that we have strong professional elected to lead our great professional staff.
Yeah. Not as exciting, and also that it's that April election, which is kind of hard to get people to turn up for sometimes, so it's tough. Kyle, did you want to add anything to that? Did you have any thoughts about how you could have been better supported, or things that worked well for you? Okay. I noticed Peter put a question in the chat that's for everybody, so I like that. He wrote, can each of you talk a little bit about what your office could do to improve the green environment? I feel bad, Bob. We keep going alphabetically, which means you always have the least time to prepare your answer, but
that's fine. I got one. I saw it earlier, and
right.
There's some really easy ones on ours. We talked about that electronic recording that eliminates paper, at least in our office. One thing that has happened in the last year or two is, so our office, we still do print the books of all the documents recorded. But in the last couple of years, they've determined, or we've found that we can go from 1 page per page down to 4 per page. So we've drastically reduced the amount of paper that we're using. We still do want to print to have a physical record available if that were ever to be needed. We have so many redundancies for the electronic, but it is still important to have that.
In case of a zombie apocalypse or
Yeah,
something, or the internet.
Whatever it might be that we can't
Yeah.
foresee. We lost internet here for a day, and we did still have our records if someone needed something immediately. But just being able to reduce down, we can't stop printing, but we still will try and make it the best case scenario.
Yeah, I think we're working on the same things over here, sort of moving to an electronic environment as much as possible. So in our small group, right? But my office and the auditor's office work together a lot on like some financial data, right? So we've got a shared drive between the two of us where instead of printing out a bunch of stuff and sending it in our office up to them, we save it directly to a drive that both of us can access in real time. So that's the same way that we operate inside this office. Is we typically are working from one master electronic document, and we are saving sort of time and trees by working primarily in that electronic environment. Also with this new ERP system that's coming online, right? The county is still, we're paper-based in a lot of things, like everybody still gets their paycheck in an envelope on Fridays of payroll day. This new system is going to eliminate that so that everyone will have a portal where they can go in, log on, see the electronic copies, things are saved in PDF version. They can email it to themselves, email it to their banker, whoever it is that needs the information. But the same thing is going on currently with paper documents for a lot of approvals of purchase orders and things like that. The new system will eliminate that because we will be using the system itself to review documents, approve documents, work through our various workflows. And so, yeah, I am very much looking forward to the time that we come completely online with that, because I think it's going to save a lot of time and a lot of trees in the process.
Kathy just messaged me and said she forgot to tell me that Kyle and Bob need to go at 1, and it is 1:01. So thank you for your time. As soon as you need to go. Yeah.
Jenna's in that meeting too. Jenna, are you coming to the meeting?
I told him I was going to be late.
See, you had a better idea.
Well, I was gonna after this just ask if anybody had one last burning question, because we do try to really wrap it up as close to 1 as possible. I don't see any hands up. It sounds like the 3 of you have got important county stuff to take care of. So thank you so much for coming and meeting with us. I know it probably feels like you were just here campaigning, and here we are knocking on your door again and saying, come talk to us some more. This has been great. I mean, I learned something from each of you, at least one thing that I didn't know. So thank you for coming. Appreciate. Yeah.
Did Kyle have a response to the last question?
On green.
Oh God, I'm sorry, Kyle. Yes, I got
Okay.
panicked about the 1 o'clock thing.
Yeah, I would say similar to Jenna. I guess it's the benefit of going last and all this. I can just echo. But I think there'll definitely be opportunities as we get into the budget process and dive deeper into process improvement with various departments. I'm sure to hopefully have an impact. But we are extremely paper-based right now, and that will definitely be the short-term impact that we'll make once we get our ERP live.
Cool. Sorry, not mean
Can
to
I
short
just-
you.
Can I
Yeah.
just do a quick thing?
Yep.
I am so glad that the 3 of you are able to work in an atmosphere in which it seems like the commissioners are working more as a team than they have in many times. And that helps you, especially in this transition time. I will also say one of the things that I have done sometimes with candidates is to encourage them to work the room, because there's some little basic things. If you're a little on the shy part, you don't like, that's not comfortable. And I've told candidates that we're sitting down, you need to get up. You don't have time to eat, you need to work the room. Or I've told them you need to dress a little differently. what's comfortable for you, but look like you're a professional.
And on that, before I run, so one thing our commission would be upset if we didn't mention is our county master planning. They just released the website. There's gonna be a lot more information about the big master plan. We haven't had one since 1996, long time ago. So I put in the chat just where you can sign up for email updates about that master plan.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, and I sort of glossed over an earlier question about going to a charter. That is a long discussion. I didn't figure we'd probably have time to, but maybe that would be a future panel, Kathy, if we could get the right people in the
Yeah.
room to have
Yeah.
a whole Muleskinners on just about.
Commissioners.
Yeah.
I'm happy to talk about that at some point with this long conversation.
Yeah, cool. All right.
And
Go ahead,
the,
Jenna.
yeah, the county master plan, that's currently coming online, is mostly about, like zoning issues and, some infrastructure issues with how the county is going to grow, as opposed to like a strategic plan for the county about priorities, but
Yeah, great. Enjoy your meeting. Happy Friday. Meetings after lunch. Hope you can stay awake. Okay,
Thank
and
you all.
for the rest of us, we'll transition to just the last part of the meeting. We don't have any business that we need to do that I'm aware of. I guess I can briefly report